Welcome to the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage, where rude mechanicals do magic. I wonder what it'd be like to own a low-dough bandsaw. Hello, I'm Ron Zage, Director of the Secret Underground Laboratory Recovery and Salvage. This magazine is from May 2018, which is just before we actually moved into the new lab space where I'm standing here. And we didn't have a low-dough bandsaw. We had a very low-dough bandsaw. Our very low-dough bandsaw is the Delta Benchtop 8-inch. It's made in Taiwan, and it has about as much to do with Delta International Machinery Company as it does Delta Airlines. When I first got it, and it was a rescue from Home Depot. It had been a display unit, so there were knobs and stuff missing. But I got it for a pretty cheap price. I don't remember what it was, probably $75 or so. It's a 1997 model, and when I got it home, got the blade adjusted, put it all back in shape, and I thought it was useless. I mean, totally useless. Couldn't cut a straight line, couldn't follow a curved line, couldn't figure out anything that this bandsaw was actually good for, and I was thinking maybe I could dump it on somebody at a garage sale or something. But fortunately, the blade broke, and I had to go out and buy a real bandsaw blade, and discovered that for lightweight work, nothing thicker than 3/4 of an inch, it'll cut hardwood and pine fairly well. I've got the 1/8 inch blade on it right now, and it'll cut a nice smooth curve. So I have to say that even though it is too small for most of the things I need it for, actually worked rather well. It even has a rack and pinion blade guide adjustment. More about that later. This was the real challenge. One of the most common repairs we get in the Secret Underground Laboratory is broken rockers. And most of them are made of walnut, sometimes oak. And the little Delta 8-inch simply could not make this piece. No matter how I tried, what blade I used, it simply didn't have the power to go through something slightly more than 3/4 of an inch. You can forget 1 inch. That's just not going to happen. And a hardwood like this was just simply more than it could do. And I got really tired of figuring out ways to do things that needed a bandsaw without having a bandsaw. And that sent me back looking through my stack of old woodworking magazines. When you have nieces and nephews that sell magazine subscriptions to raise money for their schools, you end up with a lot of these hanging around the house. And I remembered the bandsaw, low-dough bandsaw test, so I went back and looked at it 3 years later. And there's two bandsaws in here that are, which we consider large bandsaws, at least 14 inches, not like the little bench tops, under $500. Remember, this is 2018. But one was a Craftsman, and one was a Porter Cable. Now, I can't promise that the Craftsman that they reviewed in this magazine still exists. Can't promise that anything that Craftsman is selling today has anything to do with the Craftsman in this magazine. But it came out ahead of the Porter Cable. However, they did rate it fairly highly for what it was and for the price, which in those days was about $450. Apparently this piece is sold exclusively through Lowe's. I looked through a lot of places to see where one could be bought. Lowe's has them. They have them on their tool floor most of the time. If you go and look up online, it says one available. So you figure you could go in and just get one, right? No. The one they have is the one that's on the floor, and it's not available. Fortunately, I've waited a few weeks to view the bandsaw so that I've had time to cool off a little bit about my experience of trying to buy a bandsaw from Lowe's. Let bygones be bygones might be the best way to put that, but let's just say I ordered it on April 2nd, was told it would be there in 5 to 7 days, and I finally went and got it on April 28th. After after many visits to the store and many phone calls, where basically it was just a lot of balls rolling around on the field, nobody even trying to pick them up.
I will say, if this bandsaw is as well built as is well packed, it should last a long time. I think it could be dropped from a plane and be fine. Lowe's should consider that as an alternative delivery system. The assembly instructions are easy to understand, and everything comes out of the box in the order they are needed. The cabinet is really stout, and it has to be. The shipping weight of this machine is 199 pounds. That presented a problem. I figure without the table and the cabinet, the frame assembly tops out at about 170 pounds, and there's no good handholds. I wrapped it up with a pair of ratchet straps and used my best deadlift stance to set it on the cabinet. This is definitely a do not try this at home technique.
Once I had it together and ready to use, the first thing I had to do was put wheels on it, because there's just simply not enough room in this shop for stuff to sit around in place ready to use constantly. The casters are 2-inch plate casters rated for 90 pounds each, so with 4 of them that should be enough to hold this piece up. They're welded to, which is actually old bed frame. That is the cheapest steel you're going to find, which is lightweight angle on the curve. Sometimes this stuff can be fairly high-grade steel. They're bolted to the regular bolt holes where the rubber feet would go, which we use to level them. I was kind of surprised. Everything on here is metric threads, which I expected that, of course. But the screw threads, the bolt threads in the base of this thing where the feet would go are 3/8/16. Didn't make any sense at all. One set of imperial threads and a machine that is completely metric. The cabinet is made of 1/16" steel, held closed with a magnetic clasp. There are louvers on the inside for shelves, but you don't get any shelves with it. And I have to say that the storage cabinet base was one of the things that I thought was superior to the Craftsman competitor, because you can never have too many cabinets in little places like this for stuff that you want to stick someplace. Now the wheel measures in at 13 3/4. And this is advertised to be a 14-inch bandsaw. In reality, what it is 35-centimeter bandsaw. Close enough for government work. It's a 2-speed model. The low speed gives us 1630 feet per minute. The high speed gives us 2730 per minute. The motor itself is a 1750 RPM model. And if my SW tachometer can be trusted, that gives us 1000 RPM at the big wheel. First time I noticed the display model at Lowe's, one thing that impressed me was the adjustment for the table lamp. It just felt solid. This is all steel, and there's two pieces there, and two good solid knobs that you can get your hands on. So the blade guides are pretty conventional. They're composite blocks and a roller bearing, same setup that down at the bottom. It was fairly easy to get it into adjustment. The bearing itself, they said it was adjusted at the factory. I said okay, and it seemed to cut pretty well after I had gotten the side blocks set the way they're supposed to be. Now the one thing that they did give this saw in the article was that the saw guide was not a rack and pinion adjustment like we've got on the Delta 8-inch. Now I have to say, if you're going to save money on something, yeah, I guess that's where I can sacrifice. Give me a slightly better guide, give me a table that adjusts easily and firmly, and make me have to pull the saw guide up and down all on my own without rack and pinion gear advantage. I can live with that. One thing I don't like about the blade adjustment is that the rod's made of aluminum. And I suppose that's just me quibbling over it. But it's kind of difficult to get a good reading off of a bandsaw blade. You tend to wiggle back and forth. You have to wait for it to slow down before you can set your 90 degrees. Small complaint, but really so far, the only one I have. I'd have to say I'm pretty sure this bandsaw could cut out a rocking chair rocker. Well, today I've had the bandsaw 10 days, and I think I've used it almost every working day for some small project or another. It has lived up to exactly what I expected, so I can't complain. I think it was a good value for the money. This is the only full-size bandsaw I've ever used since probably 7th grade industrial arts. I'm pretty sure about that. So my basis for judgment is maybe a little small, but I do know what I need, and I know what I like, and this saw works out pretty well, except for a way too overstrenuous sales process at Lowe's. I can recommend it to anyone. So, this is Bronze Age for the Secret Underground Laboratory. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Be happy to answer along. Anything I can help you with, ask that too. So, to the next video, thank you very much.